Welcome back, everybody. We've made it, the end of Season 1.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?
Before we get to all the new stuff coming up in Season 2,
Uh-huh.
we thought it'd be a good idea to do kind of a recap of the highlights from this first season. We've covered a lot of ground, and we just wanted to help you solidify some of the key concepts we've explored together.
Think of it as a knowledge organizer.
Exactly. It can feel a little overwhelming to have all that information at once, so we're just going to bring out the most valuable takeaways and spark some curiosity for revisiting topics in greater depth later on.
Because revisiting topics is really how you end up really understanding them. You know, the first time you hear something, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But it's when you come back to it again and again,
Right.
and you start to see how it connects to other things you've learned, that's when the real learning happens.
Like building a framework, right?
Exactly. It's not just about memorizing facts. It's about building a framework for understanding how things work.
So that's what we're going to do today.
Okay.
We're going to provide that high-level overview,
Mhm.
and then in future episodes, we're going to zoom in on specific areas from Season 1, adding new layers of detail and nuance.
It's kind of like, have you ever noticed those pictures where you can zoom in and zoom in and zoom in and there's like more detail?
Oh, yeah, fractals.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. The more you zoom in, the more you see, the more you understand.
It's almost like how drug absorption works, which we'll get to a little bit later.
Okay.
But let's take a trip down memory lane, back to the early episodes where we started our deep dive into the world of drug discovery and development.
Yeah, it's a fascinating journey, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
From that initial spark of an idea in a research lab
Uh-huh.
to the long and winding road of turning that idea into a medicine that someone can actually use.
Right. Remember we talked about the biopharmaceutics classification system, the BCS?
Oh, yes, the BCS. That's a really important one. It's a way of categorizing drugs based on their solubility and permeability, which helps predict how well they'll be absorbed by the body.
So if a drug dissolves easily and can pass through cell membranes, that's great news for getting it into the bloodstream.
Right.
But if it struggles with either solubility or permeability, that's where the formulation challenges really begin.
Exactly. And that's where the creativity of pharmaceutical scientists comes in. You know, they have to come up with all sorts of clever ways to overcome those challenges.
Like with controlled release formulations, right?
Oh, yes, controlled release. That's a great example. So these formulations are designed to release the drug over time
Mhm.
instead of all at once. And they can utilize different mechanisms like osmosis or diffusion to control the release rate.
Right. And then there are those tiny osmotic pumps that can deliver medication at a precise rate for days or even weeks.
It's like having a microscopic pharmacist inside your body.
I know, right? So cool.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, before we even get to formulation, we need to make sure that the drug dissolves properly.
Absolutely. Dissolution testing is crucial.
Uh-huh. And remember that Noyes-Whitney equation.
Oh, yes, the Noyes-Whitney equation. It's a classic.
I'm sure some of our listeners just shuddered hearing that.
It might sound intimidating, but it's really quite elegant. It helps predict how quickly a drug will dissolve
Right.
based on factors like its solubility, surface area, and the conditions it's exposed to. It highlights how important it is to understand not only the drug's properties, but also how those properties interact with the environment.
Right. Which is tricky because the human body is not a simple beaker.
Exactly. It's way more complicated than that. There's a complex interplay of factors like pH, enzymes, and physical forces that can all influence how a drug dissolves and gets absorbed.
So how do we even begin to understand all of that?
Well, that's where mathematical modeling comes in.
Yeah.
We can use these models to simulate how a drug might behave in the body based on its properties and the physiological environment it will encounter.
It's like having a virtual laboratory, right?
Precisely. It's a really powerful tool.
So we're using math and computer simulations to streamline drug development,
Yes.
making it more efficient and ultimately more successful.
It's incredible how science is constantly evolving and finding new ways to improve human health.
I know, it's so exciting. But I think we should probably pause here for a minute and let our listeners catch their breath.
Sounds good to me. We'll be back in a flash to continue our journey through Season 1.
Welcome back, deep divers. We left off talking about some pretty amazing advancements in drug delivery. It's incredible to think how far we've come from just grinding up plants and hoping for the best.
I know, right? Like, we're talking nanoparticles delivering drugs to certain cells.
Exactly.
It's mind-blowing. But I think before we get too lost in the future, it's worth kind of circling back to one of the core concepts we've explored this season, which is this interplay between drugs properties
Yes.
and that physiological environment it encounters in the body.
Absolutely. That's key.
Yeah.
You can't ignore that if you want to design an effective therapy.
Right. It's not just about getting a drug into the bloodstream.
Right.
It's about making sure that it reaches its target in the right concentration
At the right time.
at the right time to exert its therapeutic effect.
And that's where things can get really, really complex.
Absolutely.
We've talked about how factors like pH, enzymes, even just like the physical forces in the digestive tract can all influence a drug's journey.
It's a delicate dance, like, for example, the pH of the stomach is highly acidic, which is great for breaking down food,
Right.
but it can also degrade certain drug molecules.
Oh.
So, we have to find ways to protect those sensitive drugs, perhaps by using enteric coatings that only dissolve in the less acidic environment of the small intestine.
Oh, so that's how those enteric-coated pills work.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
It's all about understanding the environment that the drug is going to be in.
Yeah. Yeah, and permeability too, right? It's not enough for a drug to just dissolve. It also needs to be able to, like, cross those cellular barriers.
Yeah, permeability is key.
To get where it needs to go.
Absolutely. It's not enough to just get into the bloodstream. You got to get to the target.
Right, and those cell membranes are very picky about what they let in and out.
Very selective, yes.
Right. So we talked about lipophilic drugs, like the ones that dissolve easily in fats.
Yeah.
They tend to have an easier time
Right.
crossing those
They
membranes.
can kind of slip right through.
Yeah.
Whereas hydrophilic drugs, the ones that are more water soluble, they often have a harder time.
It's like a bouncer at a club.
Exactly. Some get in, some don't.
Yeah, so those prodrugs?
Oh, yes, prodrugs. That's a great example of how we can sometimes trick the body into letting a drug through.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a modified version of the drug
Yeah, it's like a disguise.
to make it more lipophilic.
Right, so it can sneak past those cell membranes. And then once it's inside, it gets metabolized back into its active form, ready to do its job.
Pretty sneaky.
It is, but sometimes you got to be sneaky to get those drugs where they need to go.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about those drugs, though, that just can't seem to, like, catch a break no matter what we do.
Right, some drugs are just inherently difficult to work with.
Like we talked about griselfulvin, cyclosporine.
Yep, those are tough ones.
The ones that have, like, really low solubility or permeability, and it makes them really hard to formulate effectively.
They are definitely challenging, but, they also highlight the importance of persistence and innovation in pharmaceutical science. We can't give up on those difficult drugs,
Right.
especially when they offer potential therapeutic benefits that aren't really available elsewhere, so we got to keep trying to find ways to make them work.
So what kind of strategies do we have to, like, tackle those cases?
Well, one approach is to use what we call enabling formulations.
Okay.
These are formulations that are specifically designed to, enhance the solubility or permeability of the drug.
So, like, are we talking about, like, cyclodextrins?
Yes, cyclodextrins are a great example.
Yeah.
They are these cyclic sugar molecules that can encapsulate hydrophobic drugs and basically make them more soluble in water.
So it's like giving those hydrophobic drugs a little life raft?
Exactly. They need a little help to navigate those watery environments.
Right.
And then for permeability challenges, we can use permeation enhancers.
Okay.
These are substances that can temporarily increase the permeability of cell membranes.
Oh, so it's like kind of loosening the grip of that cellular bouncer.
Exactly. Just enough to let the drug slip through.
But I imagine there are some risks with, like, messing around with those cell membranes.
Of course, safety is always a paramount concern in drug development.
Oh, yeah.
We don't want to cause any unintended harm. So we need to be very careful about selecting and evaluating these permeation enhancers.
That balancing act, right?
Yes, it's always a balancing act.
Finding that way to, like, improve the drug delivery, but not compromising safety.
Exactly. And that's where those mathematical models that we talked about earlier
Yeah.
can be so valuable because they can help us predict how different formulation strategies might affect a drug's absorption, distribution, even its potential for side effects.
So we can kind of run those what-if scenarios.
Exactly, without having to do tons and tons of experiments, which can take a lot of time and money.
It's like having a crystal ball for drug development.
It's not quite a crystal ball, but it's definitely a very powerful tool.
So we've talked about how the drug's properties interact with that physiological environment.
Right.
The challenges of solubility and permeability, the strategies we can use to enhance drug delivery. I mean, it's pretty clear that Pharmaceutical science is all about understanding those complexities
It
and
is.
finding, elegant solutions to overcome those challenges.
Absolutely. It's a fascinating field.
But can we zoom out for a minute and talk about
Uh,
why this matters?
Well, it matters because at the end of the day, it's all about improving patient outcomes.
Right.
Every decision we make in drug development,
Uh,
from selecting the right drug candidate
yeah.
to designing the optimal formulation, is driven by that goal to create therapies that are effective, safe, and convenient for patients to use.
So it's not just about like science for science's sake.
Exactly.
It's about using science to make a difference in people's lives.
It's about making people's lives better. That's what makes this field so rewarding. We have the opportunity to apply our knowledge and our skills to develop these innovative solutions that can alleviate suffering and improve human health.
That's a really nice way to put it.
It's really what drives us.
And speaking of innovation,
Hmm.
I'm eager to dive into those cutting-edge technologies that are like revolutionizing drug delivery.
Oh, yes, there are some amazing things happening in that area.
Like those nanoparticles we were talking about?
Nanoparticles are incredible. They offer so many advantages over traditional drug delivery systems.
Like targeting specific cells and tissues.
Exactly.
Can you unpack that a bit more for us?
Sure. So imagine these nanoparticles as tiny little delivery trucks
Okay.
carrying their precious cargo of drug molecules.
Uh-huh.
We can engineer these nanoparticles to have, specific properties
Right.
that allow them to interact with certain types of cells.
Okay.
So, for example, we can attach antibodies to the surface of the nanoparticles.
Sorry.
And these antibodies act like homing devices,
Oh, wow.
guiding them to cells that express specific receptors.
So it's like a lock and key system.
Exactly.
Where that antibody on the nanoparticle
Uh-huh.
fits perfectly with the receptor on that target cell.
Exactly. And once that nanoparticle binds to its target cell,
Okay.
it can deliver its drug payload directly.
So we're minimizing exposure to healthy tissues,
Exactly.
reducing those side effects.
That's the goal.
That's amazing.
Like a personalized package going straight to the recipient.
Bypassing all those unwanted stops.
Exactly. And the potential applications of this technology are vast. We're seeing exciting progress in using nanoparticles to deliver chemotherapy drugs directly to cancer cells,
Oh, wow.
which means that you can reduce those toxic effects on healthy tissues.
That's huge for cancer patients.
It is. It can make a huge difference in their quality of life.
Yeah. It's not just cancer, though, right?
No, not at all.
You're seeing progress in using nanoparticles to treat all sorts of diseases.
All sorts of diseases, infectious diseases, autoimmune disorders, neurological conditions.
Even genetic diseases.
Even genetic diseases. It's really incredible.
I can see why you're so excited about this.
It's really the future of drug delivery. It's personalized, it's precise, it's full of promise.
Yeah. And we've only just begun to scratch the surface of what's possible
Exactly. This is just the
with
beginning.
nanotechnology in medicine.
I can't wait to see what the future holds.
This is all so fascinating. I can't wait to keep going deeper with these topics in future episodes. But I think it's important to also think about the broader implications
Oh,
of
absolutely.
these advancements.
With any new technology comes new ethical and societal questions that we need to address.
And ensuring equitable access to these therapies, right?
That's a big one.
Yeah.
We don't want to create a healthcare system where only the wealthy can benefit from these advancements.
Right.
We need to make sure that everyone has access.
It's a good reminder that while scientific innovation is crucial, it's equally important to ensure that everyone benefits.
It's about using science to make the world a better place for everyone.
Absolutely. So I think we should take another quick pause here.
Okay.
Let these ideas settle in. And when we come back, we'll wrap up our Season 1 recap
Sounds good.
and give you a little sneak peek at what we have in store for Season 2. And we are back. Wow, it feels like we've gone through the entire universe of drug development in just this one episode.
It really has been quite the journey, hasn't it?
Recapping the highlights of Season 1.
We've covered so much ground.
From those really fundamental concepts of drug discovery and development all the way to the mind-blowing possibilities of targeted drug delivery.
And everything in between, right?
Yeah. Talked about solubility, permeability, those amazing osmotic pumps, nanoparticles, drugs. It's a lot to take in.
It is, but I think what really ties it all together is that drive to improve patient outcomes.
That's what I was going to say. I think that's what's really stuck with me the most.
Absolutely. Everything we've discussed, every challenge we've explored, every innovation we've celebrated, it all comes back to that core purpose. Using science to make a real difference in people's lives.
That's what makes this field so inspiring. It's not just about equations and molecule.
Yo, it's
It's
not.
about understanding the human body
Yeah.
and finding ways to, like, help it heal and thrive.
And looking ahead to season 2, I'm really excited to dive deeper into that concept of personalized medicine, tailoring treatments to an individual's unique genetic makeup and physiological characteristics.
That's the future, isn't it? Moving away from those, like, one-size-fits-all approaches
Yes, exactly.
and moving toward therapies that are precisely targeted to each patient's needs.
Imagine a world where we could predict how an individual will respond to a particular drug based on their genetic profile.
Yeah.
So we could select the most effective treatment and minimize the risk of side effects.
It's like taking everything we know about drug development and applying it on an individual level.
Precisely.
Wow, that's incredible.
And that personalized approach, it extends beyond just choosing the right drug. It's also about optimizing the dosage,
Okay.
the route of administration,
Uh-huh.
even the timing of treatment, all based on that individual's unique circumstances.
So it's not just about the drug, it's about, like, tailoring that whole treatment strategy to the individual patient.
Exactly. And that's a big shift, you know? It's a shift away from a reactive approach to disease management and towards a more proactive and preventative approach.
It's really empowering individuals to take control of their health and well-being,
Exactly.
armed with the knowledge and the tools that are specifically tailored to their needs.
It's really exciting to think about all the possibilities.
It is. I mean, it's amazing to think about how far we've come in the field of pharmaceutical science.
It is. We've come a long way.
And it's even more exciting to think about what the future holds
We've only just begun to explore the possibilities.
of personalized medicine
Yes, personalized medicine, targeted drug delivery,
and just all those other innovations on the horizon.
so many exciting things happening.
And we cannot wait to share those discoveries with you as we continue our deep dive into the world of drug development in Season 2.
Absolutely. So keep those curious minds engaged. Stay tuned for more fascinating insights.
Yeah.
And join us as we embark on this exciting new chapter together.
Thank you all for joining us on this epic journey through Season 1.
It's been a pleasure.
We will see you next time for another deep dive into this fascinating world of drug development.